workaround to implement privacy of variables in return objects uses WeakMap, discussed later in the chapter. So there is another way or alternate way to implement the privacy of these variables, which is inherently supported in JavaScript using WeakMap. WeakMap takes only objects as keys and cannot be iterated. So it only takes the keys and you cannot iterate on it or you cannot access it, which makes it more which implements its privacy. So that's another way to implement privacy. Thus, the only way to access object inside the module is through its reference. Outside the module, you can access it only through a public method defined within it. Thus, it ensures privacy for the object. So, using WakeMap, the only way for you to access that object is through its reference or through the specific method that object reference. So that's actually what makes the WeakMap more private. Outside the module, you can access it only through a public method defined within it. So you define that API as well inside the WeakMap as it ensures privacy for the object. History. From a historical perspective, the module pattern was originally developed in 2003 by several people, including Richard Cornford, Douglas Crockford later popularized it in his lectures. So, in history, this module pattern was just recently, in just 2003. Another piece of trivia is that some of its features may appear quite familiar if you have ever played with Yahoo's YUI library. The reason for this is that the module was a strong influence on YUI when its components were created. Examples. Let's begin at looking at implementing the module pattern by creating a self-contained module. We use the import and export keyword in our implementation. To recap our previous discussion, export allows you to provide access to module features outside the module. At the same time, import enables us to import bindings exported by a module to our script. So the first encounter or first explanation we would have here is using a module with an import and export. So this is the basic of the module, and this is also the foundation of JavaScript programming language, in which you create a module, import and export the private and public methods. To recap our previous discussion, exports allow you to provide access to module features outside the module. So this export or the module export feature was actually discussed in the previous chapter, which actually we haven't discussed yet. So we will go back. We have touched a lot of that in full stack web, but in this book we actually haven't touched that. At the same time, import enables us to import bindings exported by a module to our script. So here, the other parts of the code cannot directly read the value of our increment counter or reset counter. So here the other parts of the code cannot directly read our methods are effectively namespace. So in the test section of our code, we need to prefix any calls with the module's name, test module. So here, test module that increment counter. So it is namespace, meaning you cannot access that inside. So as you can see, we need to import the actual test module that we test module export in order for us to be able to use it. So we cannot use that directly. When working with the module pattern, we might find it helpful to define a simple template we can use to get started with it. Here's one that covers namespacing, public and private variables. So when creating a module, it's helpful to have this template. So we start with initiating a variable, a private function that logs an arguments, and then const my namespace. You have a public variable, a public function utilizing privates, my public function bar, my private method bar, and then export default namespace. The closure here allows the let my private and my private method to be private, but can be reused via exporting a public interface called my namespace. So another key concept is that the closure. We also mentioned that in the previous video, but here you can see how the closure allows the my private and the my private method to be private. So this is another view of using my closure, another way of looking another way of thinking about or realizing the importance of it, but can be used via exporting a public interface called my namespace. So you can only use those methods using the my namespace. So we create a private variable, and then we can create a function, and then the actual object capturing or encapsulating those private variable and function that we want to export. So those are the simple template that we can use over and over again to create this module pattern. What follows is another example where we can see a shopping basket implemented using the pattern. The module itself is completely self-contained in a global variable called basket module. So as you can see, const basket. So we created a variable again, module with an empty thing, and then another const do something private. So this is the function, and then const do something else private again. Create an object expose to the public. So const basket module equal. So we created a variable and then a function, or do something private function, and then do something else private function. So that's a function again, and then the object that we will expose to the public. Again, this is a template pattern that we can use over and over again. So here we had add items to our basket, get the item counts in got total, and then export default. The basket array in the module is kept private because it's the first variable again that we're encapsulating, just like before. So other parts of our application cannot directly read it. It exists only within the module's closure, and so the only methods able to access it are those with access to its scope: add item, get item, etc. So the only thing that can access those initial variable are those that has access to its scope that was defined afterward, the object that defined afterward, such as the basket module, or the method defined inside the basket module, which is the add item and get item. So the basket array in the module is kept private, so other parts of our application cannot directly read it, only within the module's closure. So again, the keyword is the module closure, and so the only methods able to access it are those with access to its scope. These methods are effectively namespace into inside basket module. So that's what we mean when we namespace into basket module, or to an object that we will export to public. When we say namespace, we are effectively saying that we are trying to keep those methods private inside the object. We're not, it will not pollute the global namespace. Let's say other developer called that globally, or they needed to use that globally, they won't have a conflict or issue. All our functions are wrapped in this module, giving us several advantages, such as the freedom to have private functions that can be consumed by our module. They aren't exposed to the rest of the page. Only our exported API is, so they're considered truly private. Given that functions are usually declared and named, it can be easier to show call stocks in a debugger when we're attempting to discover what functions through an exception. Module pattern variations. Over time, designers have introduced different variations of the module pattern suited to their needs. So with that basics of module, we will have to discuss how designers introduce or create effective ways to use this template module, or the one that was invented in 2003, to be able to use this more effectively, or more organized, to be able to accomplish their goals. So import mixins. So these mixins are also being used with structural pattern, in which it allows you to add the behavior in compile time for particular entity or object that you want. For example, a person, you want to have a capability on it, such as knowing how to read, write. You can basically add that in compile time for every instance of person being created. So that's the mixin for structural pattern. Now this pattern variation demonstrates how you can pass globals, i.e. utility functions or external libraries, as arguments to higher order function in a module. This effectively allows us to import and locally alias them as we wish. So we'll just continue with this moving in the future, or in the next videos.